right, so we're here for People of Jiu Jitsu podcast number 12 with my friend Alex Ecklin. So, a little intro on Alex. He's known for creativity of vibrant Jiu Jitsu, creating an amazing community at Masterskaya in New York City with a focus on blending traditional techniques and a strong sense of family. He is a driving force at Masterskaya, which is more than Jiu-Jitsu Academy. It is a hub where technique meets culture as well as your personal philosophies on training. He is a third-degree black belt under Professor Shaolin, a high-level competitor who has competed in organizations such as EBI, Rise Invitational, Fight to Win, and IBJJF, and I'm sure many others. He has created and I hope patented a technique called G-Roll, and there's so much more coming. So thank you for being here, Alex.
Thank you. You got to send that to me. I got to put that on my website.
Yeah. You didn't know some of this stuff?
It sounds great. Sounds better than what I wrote myself.
G-Roll. I want to hear more about it. But let's start off with the beginning. I know we have somewhat of a similar background coming to US back in the days as kids. So you originally came from Ukraine. You grew up in Brooklyn. How was that transition for you as a kid back then?
Yeah, it was in the beginning it was tough, because I came when I was 6 years old, and I didn't speak English, and I went straight into second grade, and I was in ESL, and I just remember the first year just hating it and wanting to go back, and I was confused, and but little by little, as I discovered McDonald's and I discovered some American things, I decided I'm gonna stay.
Yeah. I feel like back then, I'm guessing this was late 80s or 90s?
No, so we moved in 1995.
1985?
95.
95.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Well, that makes sense because I'm a little older, but I came a few years before. Yeah, back then New York was different.
Yeah.
I always talk about it. Like, if I wish I would find jiu-jitsu when I was in my early 20s. I feel like that would have been a big breakthrough for me. But you never know. I feel like everything happened for a reason.
Yeah.
The way it did. So as a kid, did you feel like martial arts was just interesting for you, or did you already feel like it was going to be your thing?
No, I was like, when I was a kid, I was unathletic. My mom, in Ukraine, she was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. My grandfather was an engineer. My father was a computer programmer. Then his father was a tailor. So my mom always jokes. She's like, "You're the first athlete in our whole generation. Like there was never an athlete before." And even today, I'm not very athletic. And so my parents, they were great. Every weekend, it's like Ukrainian Russian style, where every weekend you go to a new activity. So every weekend they would sign me up for something. So I did basketball, I did baseball, I did tennis, I did ping pong, I did every single activity. And I was, I liked all of them in theory, but I was not good in any of them. Actually, the only activity that I liked was art, so that's the only one that I stuck with. And I had an art tutor. And then my father, when I was maybe probably like 10 years old, he showed Bloodsport to me.
Mm-hmm.
And after I saw Bloodsport, I saw Jean-Claude Van Damme and I said, this is it, this is my role model. And this is what I want to do. And then I begged them to do karate. And then on Coney Island Avenue and Cortelli Road, there was a karate school that I signed up to. And I went for about 2 years, 3 years. And I was a green belt. And my teacher, he was a great teacher. His name was James. He told me personally, my parents, he goes, listen, I can't graduate Alex to brown belt because he can't do push-ups. So like I was like a chubby kid, I loved it. I loved being in a uniform. I loved the idea of it, but I couldn't even do push-ups and ended up quitting and doing other stuff. Then my parents signed me up for a judo summer camp. And again, like I loved the idea of it, but I was like the worst kid in judo. It was Spartak judo with Arkady Aronov. And I liked it just for the friends and, I really liked Alex. So I liked going there just to see him demonstrate all the throws, but I was horrible at it. I competed in like 2 tournaments and did pretty poorly. And then also quit. And only when I was like 17 did I, decide that I want to return. And by that time I took it seriously. And that's when I started jiu-jitsu.
Are you the only kid?
I'm an only child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, your parents invested a lot into you. And I feel like, the support from family, especially when we're kids. Like my son at 6, we thought that he's gonna love soccer, and he didn't. But then at 10, 11, he actually asked for it himself. So I feel like that transition, it either has to happen for a child on their own, or hopefully we put our kids into the right sport or activity that they're gonna fall in love with. No, but it's awesome. When I get the story, after I take people's picture for the page, a lot of people mention either like blood sport. I was gonna say Rambo.
And that's a big one too. That's a
Rambo
great
is
one.
my story because
Yeah.
that's my Halloween costume.
Yeah.
But but blood sport, best of the best. That's
Of course, yeah. Classics.
yeah, classics. So some Jet Li or other kung fu series. But that's awesome. All right, so you were a chubby kid, you transitioned. So how did you, like, who introduced you to jiu-jitsu? How did that come about for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I can say that several different stories, and all of them are
Right.
kind of true. But what happened was like to gain confidence, I decided to get into bodybuilding, and I didn't have that many friends, and then I go on this bodybuilding.com forum,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, make some friends online, and we're chatting about bodybuilding, and then I started going to Bally Total Fitness on Kings Highway,
Yeah,
and I found
still there.
it's still there. Well, they
Well,
renamed it.
it's renamed it.
Renamed it. They
Yeah,
rebranded. And like I'm still chubby, and I'm thinking I'm doing powerlifting, and I have this online friend who I still talk to today. His name is Zach. He lives in Oklahoma, and he and I were always talking about pride. We're talking about UFC, and he's also writing programs for me. He's like, okay, today you're gonna bench press this, and you're gonna do this. You 2.5 pounds, blah blah blah. He's like helping me remotely.
yeah.
And then one day he was like, man, why don't you just like do like jujitsu or judo or something? And then I was like, yeah, that's actually a great idea. So I looked up, and there was a Henzo Gracie black belt next to my house, and it's Gene Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, and my first day, I loved it. I signed up, and I trained every single day, multiple times a day, ever since I started.
That's Brooklyn Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right?
Yeah, but it's before they opened all these other locations.
Mm-hmm.
This was
The
I would go
original.
to Gene's original location on Avenue U.
Yeah.
And it's still around, and he's still around, and it's like a lot of people have passed through there, like a lot of
Yeah.
the top black belts, and a lot of people that have gyms all over the country, they started there. And
What do you think contributes to that? I mean, why is it that quite a few people, now that you mentioned, I know, went through that academy? Is it because back then there was not much of, like, there was newspapers, right? But how, you found through this, like through internet, it was
I think it
already,
was through
yeah,
I think they had a crude website, but there was not that much, there's not that many options, right?
yeah,
Like you could have went to Henzo's, you could have went to Fabio
yeah.
Clemente. He was one of the first, I think. Who was the person before Marcelo that gave Marcelo the gym? It was like a Machado person. There was this person, and there were just not that many options. So I was like, well, instead of going to Midtown Manhattan, let me just go to Avenue U and you know learn from Gene.
Yeah, I was close by too. Well, yeah, that's a great transition. And then I remember I met you. You had a location in Bushwick somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Was that your first location?
that was my first location. Yeah, we opened in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
and it was when I first opened. It was kind of nuts, but it was 100% donation based.
Which is
So
insane.
yeah,
All donation based, and they had a sign. I think it was like whatever you can donate, right?
yeah.
Alex wasn't asking for a specific number, but tell me more about it. I mean, how did the idea come about to create an academy? Again, I don't know if you have to pay rent or not. I'm sure you did. I'm sure there
Yeah.
was a lot of expenses, but it's a crazy idea, right? To create an academy, donation based, not knowing what Mike or John is gonna bring to you and how you're gonna,
Yeah.
meet the meets at the end of the month.
Well, I was working in martial arts my whole life. I had only maybe one or two jobs that were not martial arts related. And I did, I was teaching classes, but I was also running the front desk. And first of all, like, the culture has shifted. And I believe that I was one of the first people that shifted away from the culture before it even became popular. Meaning, like today, it's very normal that there's no contracts. But, when I was working the front desk, there was contracts. It was very strict. It was very expensive, and like 2010, it was like $220 a month, and you had to have a 12-month contract. You can't get out of it. And there's uniform requirements. It was kind of nuts, right? And I remember always feeling bad turning people away. And people like, hey, I want to really train, but I can't afford it. And I'm like, listen, you got to sign this contract, or sorry. And then I was always kind of like the bad guy, and I felt bad about it. And when I was in my early 20s, I started going to yoga to the people. And it was a donation based school. And I was like, this is phenomenal. I can pay whatever I want to.
Was it the New York based?
Yoga to the people?
Yeah.
It's actually next door to where you train. It's in St.
Yeah.
Mark's. It was at that time, right on St. Mark's. Yeah, yoga to the people. And I was like, this is pretty cool. So when I first opened up my gym, I mean, that's the whole story in itself. But I was still fighting in MMA, and I was still competing in jiu-jitsu, and I didn't really want to do the business aspect of it. Plus, I wanted to be kind to the public, and plus, I wanted it to be like almost like like a open mat in a way. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna deal with any of this nonsense. I'm just gonna make it donation based, and let's see what happens. And a couple of things contributed to that. A close friend of mine who's like a big brother, his name is Ivor. He went 50-50 with me on the rent in the beginning. So that was why it was possible for me to do this. And it was also possible because jiu-jitsu was very expensive at that time.
Yeah.
So we accidentally blew up. And Ivor and another friend, they were like, are you crazy? You're going to like give people free jiu-jitsu? They're like, what are you going to do if 50 people show up? I'm like, I don't know. So they were like, well, you got to make it a speakeasy. So then we made it like a speakeasy. So there was no address. You had to email to get the address, and you had to kind of put some work in to find it. But once you find it, you can come in and, pay what you want. And we did that for a while.
I remember looking for that place. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm glad I had his number, because I would call him. But there's omakase spots like that in New York, which also
Pay what you want?
No, not like as far as location wise,
Yeah.
to find the location, you get to a spot, you got to press this code, and there's a passcode that you have to mention when they answer. I'm like, man, let me just eat. But training is different, obviously. I'm also very happy that people had trust in your vision, or maybe you align your vision together with this gentleman, because that helps. Somebody trusting into your, something that you're gonna build, but on paper or just putting it in plain terms, not everybody are gonna be sold right away.
Yeah.
This person trains, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, he was a black belt as well, and he was doing a kids program. He was, hey, like I'll pay half the rent and I'll do a kids program, but he never was gonna do it. He kind of did it to help me out, I think. And then 6 months in, he was like, hey, listen, I'm gonna exit. And by the time he exited, I was already okay.
So that was your first spot in Bushwick,
That was
right?
the first spot in Bushwick, yeah.
And then you moved to where?
Well, then that lane, like I learned so many lessons, that landlord, the first year in, I made every single mistake in the book, so the landlord was very friendly towards me. And he's like, how's it going? I'm like, man, I can't believe it. It's going great. And he goes, oh, it's going great. And then the second year, he raised my rent 30%. Yeah. And then so I was like, and then I called my old boss to complain. I'm like, dude, is this even legal? And he goes, it's legal. And, he goes,
Keep your mouth shut next
you made
time.
the first mistake. He made the biggest mistake. You can't tell your landlord to do it well. I said, all right, noted. So then we moved to another Bushwick location, and then we, got popular, and then we opened up a second location in downtown Brooklyn. So then we were running Van and I, we were running downtown Brooklyn and Bushwick, and then
So Van is your partner back then, or he's still your partner?
Van was my partner pre-pandemic. He was running one gym, I was running the other. And post-pandemic, he returned on a smaller scale. He's has 2 kids now.
Yeah.
So he's busy with that. So right now I'm running the gym on my own, and Van is teaching a few times a week.
So that place downtown Brooklyn. Tell me more about it, because I remember that.
The alleyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
And
I mean,
the famous picture, right, that you have with a lot of people in the geese, is that a downtown location?
that was on Canal Street. That
Canal
was a little
Street.
bit. That was post pandemic.
Mhm.
But well, first of all, I have a funny story to tell you. So uh, when the thing was a speakeasy, I still wanted to have like Google reviews. So I put a fake address on Google, just like a fake, like these cross streets, and you just like put into a random place. And I always liked Lachlan Giles. You know, I knew about him before he was famous. You know, I always watched the stuff and knew about him and liked him. And I found out that he was going to be in AGCC. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like if you're going to be in America, would you come and do a seminar in my gym?
Mhm.
And Lachlan was like, yeah. And we scheduled a seminar. And I'm trying to do like a pre-registration. Nobody signs up. I think I had like 3 people to sign up. And then he does his AGCC showing, and then my email gets flooded. Like overnight, there's like 100 people like trying to sign up for the seminar, right? For Lachlan's seminar. And, that was the whole thing in itself. And then Lachlan's seminar starts and Lachlan is not there. And I'm like texting him like, hey man, like, are you close? Like everybody's waiting for you. And he's like, I can't find it, man. He goes, I'm like, where are you? He's like, I'm at this. So he Googled and he went to the
Oh
random
my God.
location on Google
That you put in.
that we put in. I'm like, oh my God, so we had to Uber him, to the downtown Brooklyn location, get him in there.
Well, this is why Alex asked for this address twice.
Multiple times, well, multiple. I don't want to have you Uber me anyway,
Lesson learned. No, but you think people didn't know who he is prior to him obviously making big waves? I mean, or it's just
not really,
yeah.
like not really. I mean, back then, this was before his ADCC run.
Yeah.
People like, and he's this Australian person. He didn't have that big of a name yet, not that big of a following.
Questioning, yeah.
And as soon as he leg locked all the giants, people want to learn the secrets.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So he finally made it there. He taught a seminar. It was good.
He taught every move that he did, and it was just like above all of our, we were just, all
blown
lost.
away, yeah. So that was on downtown, right?
And the downtown Brooklyn location, the way that happened was there was this lady that came to Bushwick, and she was a blue belt, and then she was like, it was like we were always crowded and always packed, it was always, and she was like, wow, you guys are so crowded, and she was part of this company called Sylvan Tutoring Center, and she goes, I have this business partner in downtown Brooklyn. He has a Sylvan Tutoring Center, and he has an empty basement. You want to take the basement? We said, this is perfect. It's a speakeasy. We're sold. So that's how we got the downtown Brooklyn location. It was in the basement of Sylvan Tutoring Center. We had no sign, and we even had to make a video tutorial on how to get there.
Yes, I remember.
You remember that, yeah. So you had to like go through this back. It was crazy. There was rats in the alleyway. It was like horrible. It was never supposed to work, and somehow it worked. And yeah, it was good while it lasted.
Masterskaya, can you tell people that don't know Russian language what it stands for, or at least the meaning behind it for you, because you came up with the name?
So it's kind of embarrassing actually, because like the shirt that I'm wearing, it's a company that I'm very close to, BJJ Camp XP, and I go to Colombia every year to do this camp with them. And every time I'm in Colombia, they all think it's my last name. So they just call me Master. They go, Master, Master, and it's like the last thing. Like I like people to call me by my name.
Yeah.
And I also never wanted to put my name like on the gym's name. Like I wanted to always like separate myself from that. And Masterskaya, it was actually Ivor's idea. And Ivor loves like Russian culture and the Russian language, and it means workshop in Russian. And I think it's super cool. I think jiu-jitsu is like a workshop. You're creating yourself, first of all. You're creating your moves, you're creating your game, and it's a constant workshop. And in the Russian language, it's the closest related to like a car mechanic shop, like an artist studio, craftsmanship. So it has multiple meanings, and I think it's very applicable to jiu-jitsu as well.
Love it. No, it's very unique. And now Masterskaya on Canal Street, which is in a prime location, big windows, much easier parking than the other two locations that we just talked about. How did you find that gym?
Yeah, so when we closed during the pandemic, I was closed for like a year and a half, 2 years, And it was a very, very hard time, because we had two schools, and first of all, we had a lot of students that prepaid their memberships, so I owed them credits for their memberships. And not only that, I felt, I don't like owing anybody anything. So first of all, I owed them the membership. Second of all, like, people wanted to train eventually, and it was hard for me to find. And I found this terrific real estate broker, and he showed me over 100 spaces in
No
Brooklyn.
way. Wow.
Like, I love real estate, by the way. Like, for fun, I'm on Zillow and I'm on Street Easy, like looking at apartments. Like, I love this kind of stuff. So I'm like looking at every every commercial real estate that can possibly work, and I can't find anything. And Ivor, the same person that started the gym with me, we're having lunch one day, and he goes, "Like, dude, what's up with you? Like, how come you still haven't opened up your gym?" And I'm like, "Man, you can't believe how hard it is." And he goes, "Well, where are you looking?" I'm like, "I'm looking in Brooklyn, and back then it was Masterskaya Brooklyn." And he goes, "Why don't you just go to Manhattan?" And, I felt kind of intimidated because, Manhattan, has Henzo's, Marcelo's, my coach Shalno was there, Unity is there. It's like all the sharks. And he was like, "Don't worry about them. You stay in your lane, just like do your thing and explore your horizons." So I called a broker, and he was highly annoyed at me because we spent like 6 months searching, and I told him only Brooklyn and like nothing else. And I'm like, "Okay, let's do Manhattan now." He's like, "Let's do Manhattan now." And then this location, Canal Street, was one of the first ones that he showed me. And, it's, for me, it's historic. It's the McDonald's on Canal and
Yeah.
Broadway. It's like the flagship M. So as soon as I saw it, I said, well, let's take it. And, even it wasn't supposed to work because my financials were not good enough for this location, because it's Manhattan, it's like more serious. And I did a 10-year lease, but somehow we found a way, and then, we got in.
That's amazing. No, it's a great spot. I I think it's not only the location that is amazing, and I feel like you achieved like a next level of some sort of commitment or growth for your own self, but it's also what I mentioned in a little introductory bio about you and the people that train there, which really translates to kind of it's a supportive comment from me to you that there's so many people out there, and jiu-jitsu is also gonna have plenty of people for Masterskaya, for Shaolin, for Henzo, for Fabio, for everything else, for Unity, everything else that's in the city. I feel like there could be a few more schools, built, and there's gonna be other people, coming in and checking it out. And who said that one person cannot move from one location to another for whatever reasons? I think the more the better, especially nowadays. Population is growing.
Well, I had a very influential friend in my life, and he's given me many lessons along the way. He was a private student of mine, and I used to train his son. And he's a very like he's a very strong businessman. Like, he runs a major company. He has like 2,000 employees. He's doing very well. And he gave me several lessons. The first lesson is he told me, he's like, "Alex," he goes, "how many people live in New York City? 8 million, 9 million, whatever." He goes, "How many jiu-jitsu gyms are there? There's, let's say, 100 jiu-jitsu gyms. Let's say each jiu-jitsu gym has 200 people. What percentage of the total practitioners of jiu-jitsu fit into 8 million?" He's like, "We can have 10 times more jiu-jitsu gyms, and there's still going to be enough for everybody." And when people, like, 10 students leave one gym to go to another gym, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of an issue. Like, a lot of jiu-jitsu instructors, they're like,
Holding on.
shaking, over 5 students and 3 students. And listen, people are going to find the place that they fit in, and people are going to find the place that, they feel more close to.
You're
So
better off, I think, keeping those people that
yeah,
fit in.
it's totally okay.
Right.
So, and then he showed me his cell phone, and he's like, "Look at my phone." He goes, "You see this number?" And he's like, "But you see this guy? You see this guy?" He goes, "These people," he goes, "This is my number one competitor. This guy's like, he's an up and coming guy in my field." Boom. He's like, "I'm talking to all of them." He goes, "And you jiu-jitsu people, you don't even say hello to each other at tournaments." And then I thought about it. I was like, that's very true. Like, how crazy is it that we have all these rivalries, and it's like, when we're all in the same field. And the last thing he told me, which is very true, and he was the one that kind of made me realize this, is that New York City is one of the only places in the world where you can be 30 years old, have 3 roommates, and hate all of them, and then not talk to anybody at your job. You try to talk to somebody in a coffee shop and they walk away from you without saying anything. And New York City is a very lonely place. And he told me, he goes, listen, he goes, your jujitsu school one day when you have it, he goes, people are going to come there not for jujitsu. They're going to come there just for a community and just to talk to somebody, just to have physical contact with somebody, and just for a place that they can have a community.
Mhm.
And all of those lessons I really internalized from the first days. And even like when I was training in Shaolins, you know, it was like kill or be killed. Like you have to train hard. And even I have a mentor who is now almost 80 years old, and he's a black belt today. I gave him his very first class when he was 65. You know, he suffered several injuries, and because every roll was like super hard, and he was 65 years old. And he's a very tough person, but he and I, we talked a lot about it, and it was like, is that the right way to train for somebody that's 65? And later when I opened my own gym, like I was like, listen, if you don't want to train hard, here's a section for you. I made like different sections on the mat, depending on how hard you want to go. One for competitors, one for, you know, you just want to go easy. And I'm like, if you want to talk, you want to flow roll, you're injured, you can stay over here and there's something for you too. And I felt like people really appreciated that. And these kind of things that I'm doing, I feel like is what kind of strengthened the community aspect and the culture aspect, that it doesn't have to just be like, you know, kill or be killed every day.
No, that's spot on. I appreciate that now more than I probably would when I started, because that a lot of that comes with growth, understanding, sometimes with age, and you can be like you mentioned, this gentleman coming in at 65, he has so much wisdom under his ears, and but yet no jujitsu knowledge, but he knows what his body needs. And it's great that you recognize the potential for you to separate competitors from everyday people who just want to, have fun.
Yeah.
Just chat more.
You're different too because you come from like a Greco-Roman background, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yes.
you know you're a bigger guy as well. You're athletic, so it's different. But you know, jujitsu, to start jujitsu, like to be honest with you, if I was 35 years old and I had like a 9 to 5, I don't know if I would start jujitsu. You know, paying money to be humiliated, to get skin infections, to get injuries, you know, to on the weekend to pay even more money to fight somebody, like this is crazy. So, you know, you need to make a jujitsu comfortable for people.
Yeah.
And if it's intimidating and if it's, you know, it's not digestible, I think is a word I would use. It's like, what, you know, then what is it good for?
I am big enough for you to give me, you know, a compliment that I might be big or whatever description of me, but I learned over the years how to flow roll, how to make my training partner want to train with me again. I feel like that's one of the biggest takeaway for me through all these years doing jujitsu. Just it's not only about me winning on the mat every day. It's my opponent, my training partner, coming back the next day uninjured, having fun doing it. Question for you, Alex. Um, you mentioned an interesting fact when we were talking before about you being into art and especially graffiti. Do you think that creativity plays a role in how you approach jiu-jitsu, especially at Masterskaya nowadays?
Um, I think the romantic answer would be yes, but the realistic answer is probably not, you know. But when I was a kid, I was into, like I mentioned, I was into art. Like my
Mhm.
parents had an art tutor for me, and I loved like running around and spray painting. Like I would, you know, I was
With
running
the
around
can
with the
or
can, yeah. And then I was on the Q train line, you know, I was
I
climbing
like
the
how it says
hoops,
running around. I wonder why.
you know, and it's you know, even, you know, like I would go to, you know, on Bay Parkway, National Wholesale Liquidators,
Mhm.
and my friend and I, we would like steal spray paint from the store.
63rd,
Sick, you know, it's somewhere over there.
61st.
61st, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was like a rite of passage, you know, you go steal spray paint from National Wholesale Liquidators and then you go like spray paint wherever you can, you know. And that's actually, I'm the most spoiled person you can meet. Like, my biggest regret is that, like, I was I was in FDR High School,
Mm-hmm.
and FDR High School at that, well, I think still does, had a strong wrestling program. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like, wrestling? Like, no. And I joined the art club. and I was doing graffiti and stuff like that. And my biggest regret is that I didn't wrestle. But no, I love art, but I don't know if, or maybe I just don't realize it, but I can't say that, it helps my jujitsu.
Mm-hmm. No, but I meant more as an artistic part of your idea and development of Masterskaya more. I mean, I feel like, you're an artist in your own way, created something like that, moving through 3 different locations, 2 boroughs, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, losing people, going through so many changes, and then finally, like, that's very creative. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned yourself, like everything, why people are there in the first place, I think it's predominantly, 70-80% is because of you there. I mean, yes, some people just come for jiu-jitsu and it's convenient and local, but I would give you more credit than you think you deserve, if you don't mind. Like,
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. But I
so
don't want that to be actually like, that's actually like, that's why my name is not on there.
yeah.
And like, I very rarely leave. Like, I'm in the gym. Larad, actually, your opponent
Yeah.
at Bridge the Fight, he called me one day, and Larad and I are close friends. And
Mhm.
Larad is like, he goes, listen, he goes, this is coming from a good place. He goes, you have to take a day off. Because I was in the gym 7 days a week, every single day. And I'm like, and I knew he was right. So then, only a couple of years ago, I took a day off. Like, Thursday is my day off, but it's not really my day off, right? But it's still, that's like my official that I'm not in the gym. But I'm in the gym like every single day. But I'm trying to build like a strong team, and my name is not on the wall on purpose. And like, the rare times that I do leave, like when I go to Colombia or I leave, I don't tell anybody, for example, because I want the place to survive without me, as it should.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And but I do understand that, since I'm there every day, that it's like kind of,
But I will say Masterskaya equals translates to Alex and vice versa. I hope you understand that. But that's the beauty of having a business, which might not have your name, but everybody knows who's behind it. And vice versa. Like I said, Alex. Oh, Alex from Masterskaya, yes.
yeah. But I wanna change that too. Like one of, like, even that's how Bridge the Fight was formed.
Mhm.
Like, one of the things that I want to do is help people make a living in jiu-jitsu, and that includes my staff. And we have affiliates now, and
Mhm.
I want to grow, and help people make a living in
Oh,
jiu-jitsu.
tell me more about Bridge the Fight. What is it?
So Bridge the Fight, it was a non-for-profit organization that I founded with Katrin and Eric, and all of us have the same kind of vision that, like, even though I'm not donation based anymore, like, I think the word that I think about often is fairness. Like, I want to make it fair, and like, if somebody's going through a hard time, like, it's not fair if now they can't pay their membership, now they can't do jiu-jitsu, right? So that's one avenue. Another avenue is, unfortunately, if you become 30 years old and you're really good in jiu-jitsu, but you don't have strong entrepreneurial skills, you're going to be unemployed, or you're going to be doing jobs that, you didn't want to do. So we want to help people, like, learn how to make a living in jiu-jitsu, how to maybe open up gyms, how to teach. And we also, we want to pay people to compete as well. Because
Beautiful.
I think it's, when I was a kid, when I was competing, every dollar that I had, I spent to competitions, and like, I went to the world championships like 10 times. One time I got third place. The other 9 times I went away with no medal. And each trip was like over $1,000. And that was all the money that I had. And, I remember just like every year coming back defeated. And thankfully I didn't quit, but I think a lot of people quit because of that. And money should not be a reason that somebody quits jiu-jitsu. So that's why we want to pay people as well. So we started this organization, and it's in the infancy stages. Currently, you were on our first event,
Yeah,
which I'm
yeah.
very grateful
Thank
for.
you for having me there.
So it was like super fights, and just so everybody knows, Mike, had a tremendous performance, and also Mike contributed to the event, meaning he sponsored the pay for the athletes. So the pay that you gave, we paid the athletes
Yeah.
with that. And we're having another event June 13th, and we're gonna have these events, and then we're just helping people with their registration fees for tournaments. We're helping people with travel expenses, and now we have these events where we're paying people.
So at Bridge the Fight, Alex had monitors, which were showing like your walkout, right? People were able to catch a glimpse of a walkout if they looking or they seated in the wrong position, not to see a person walk out, but they also had a heart rate, right? It's almost like Street Fighter, two colorful streaks of different color lights. And at first I didn't know what it is until my time was to come out, and the gentleman came up to me and asked me if he can put on this bracelet on my bicep, right? So that is through an app called
Sensei app.
Sensei app.
So Sensei app, it was just we had this interesting idea to track heart rate in jiu-jitsu. And for me, like I have many goals in jiu-jitsu that are besides, getting people good in arm bars. And one of my goals is like when I have students, and you know what I'm about to say. Some of them, they're going so hard, right? And then you're like, hey man, like slow down. This person's and they're like, no, I'm going slow.
This
All
is
right.
slow, yeah.
Right. This is slow. And it's like, and the guy's breathing super heavy, and it's like you're like, yeah, and it's not so. And vice versa. I have some students that they come and they're just like coasting, and I'm like, come on, let's push the pace a little bit, because I'm trying to always have a balance in the room. And they're like, no, I'm pushing. So we need metrics to show, are you pushing or not? And the best metric for that is your heart rate. Also, like, there's a funny story that I share with people. When I was a blue belt, on Sherdog forums, I see that Hoyce Gracie's doing a seminar in Connecticut for like $40. I said, this is unbelievable. $40 for Hoyce Gracie. I called all my friends and we carpooled to the Hoyce Gracie seminar. And at the Hoyce Gracie seminar, he's giving us a speech and he says something interesting. And I really like what he said. He said, if your heartbeat is above 70 beats per minute, you're not doing jiu-jitsu. And then we all laugh. And it's like, then that means Hoyce Gracie never did jiu-jitsu in his life, and none of us do jiu-jitsu. But it has a very interesting idea behind it. That, to be high level in jiu-jitsu, you need to maintain such a low heart rate, and you need to be able to win in a very relaxed state.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where all these ideas with the heart rate metrics came out. And then we also realized that watching fights is kind of boring. Like, unless you're a real jiu-jitsu nerd, to watch jiu-jitsu fights, it's not the most exciting thing. So we decided to like gamify it, and we decided to do a live heart rate overlay, so that when two people are fighting, they both have a heart rate bar. And the higher your heart rate goes, the smaller your bar is. So it becomes very exciting because, like, when you came onto the mat, you look cool as a cucumber, but then maybe your heartbeat is like beating out of your chest. Your heart's about to, go into you, not you personally, but
Yeah, well, in general.
and vice versa. Like Jarbam, did you see Jarbam?
150. I think he was kicking his teammate. He's like, look at my heart rate. He started measuring his pulse through carotid. It was very high.
But then he lowered it.
He lowered it, yeah.
So Jarbam, the main event person, I found this like unbelievable, right? Like his heart rate was about 150. And then he starts like meditating, and then for me, I'm thinking, and we did it in Masterskaya. So everybody sees. So I'm thinking, is Jarbem like, is he trying to like psych everybody out? Is he trying to, what's he doing? Why is he doing that? Like I never seen him meditate before. And then you see his heart rate just lower, and his heart rate was like, I think 70. And he was so calm, and he goes into like very zen. And I believe that helped him win the fight because he weathered the storm early on. He fought one of my friends and the guy that trains with me. That's very
he's super tough. Yeah, I train with him too.
He was like a close friend of mine. He trains with me, and he was a monster. And Hugh just like comes at him like a truck. And Jarbam kind of weathers it, and
Yeah, it was a reversal.
Yeah, reversed them, and then
bar,
But I believe, if Jarbam's heart rate was very high, he maybe even would have tapped. Because Hugh had a tight, like, front headlock on him.
Yeah.
And then you have to be calm in those moments.
You had a very interesting setup too, right? You had like, you built corners, almost like what do you call that thing?
I listen to the people. I have a student that's a friend of mine as well, a close friend named Chris. And he comes to me one day and he goes, Alex, I have the best idea for you. I'm like, what's your idea? He goes, let's do the Craig Jones wall.
Yeah.
I said, Chris, get away from me. I said, Chris, like, don't bother me, please. Like, Chris. He's like, no, this is it. I'm like, Chris, I'm not doing this. And then like an hour later, I saw another student, and then we're talking. I'm like, by the way, what do you think about this? Like, if we do this wall? He goes, what? That's the best idea. And then I asked like 5 other people, and they're like, and then as soon as everybody requested, I said, okay, we're gonna build this wall.
I think there's another organization, maybe even Bus Rutan is involved in it.
Karate combat.
Karate combat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the wall is phenomenal. I think it's really nice. It's really fun. It adds an element.
Yeah.
And like what Hugh said about the fight with Jarbem, he said something very interesting. Like, and he was like, "Yeah, my game plan." He goes, "I'm gonna get the easiest takedown of my life. I'm gonna put his back against
Pin
the,
him in the
and then I'm
wall.
just gonna push him, and then he's gonna fall over because it's like a slanted." And Hugh said that when he pushed him and he got like a front headlock, he was kind of stuck because he couldn't use the floor to flatten him out.
Yeah.
And then when he got swept and then Jarbem went for the knee bar, Hugh said he was stuck on the wall. So he said in the beginning, the wall he was used like, he was able to use it very effectively. And then later was, used against him. So I think it's really smart because like the padded wall is not realistic. When I trained MMA, I remember just like being so surprised how painful and uncomfortable your naked back is against the metal fence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, it's so uncomfortable. But if your back is on the soft surface of the mat, it's like very comfortable. So it doesn't directly translate, and people, when they do wall work, they do wall work a lot of times on the padded walls. And I think, wall is like unrealistic. So this, I think, is a very fun alternative.
Yeah, no, it's a great addition to Bridge the Fight. And I hope you keep it up. And maybe even going forward, you have the ability to build the wall on both sides, because right now you only had it on one
Yeah.
side.
And initially, because you saw how the event
Yeah.
were like, even people wanted whatever rules they wanted to request.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would like it's a like a.
Can we talk about the host in the white, beautiful leather jacket?
Absolutely.
Oh, he did an amazing job.
Yeah,
What is
Billy.
his name?
Billy.
Billy?
Billy, he came to me once. He goes, "Alex," he goes, "I have, several dreams in my life. One of them is to be like an announcer for an event." I said, "Billy, we're going to make all your dreams come true." So he was the announcer and he was very funny. And, but initially I was going to give people an option. Actually, I was going to say, "Do you want to fight on the wall or not on the wall?" And then I decided, I'm just going to surprise everybody. Like, just fight everywhere.
Yeah. I didn't know about the wall, but
yeah.
We didn't get there. Honestly, for my jiu-jitsu, I don't need much space.
Yeah.
Give me this little 2x2 area.
Yeah.
Love it. No, listen, I wish you a lot of love and luck, and I wish all of your dreams when it comes to growth of jiu-jitsu, whether it's Masterskaya, whether it's the app, or Bridge the Fight, which is, you helping the community, and all of those three things that I just mentioned. It's not about collecting the rent. It's really about you giving back to the community. And I think this is what you're really known for, besides really good jiu-jitsu, is you doing great things for the people. That's very important. So I wish you a lot of support and good luck with that.
Thank you.
Of course. Alex, what do you think many jiu-jitsu academies owners are getting wrong nowadays, as far as the way they possibly design the program, the way the schools are run?
I think many things, and it's coming out now where, a lot of jiu-jitsu gym owners, they take themselves way too seriously. Like even recently I had a student that I really like, and he's a little bit older than me, and like we're talking on the mat, and him and I have a good rapport, but he ends up cursing at me, and when he cursed at me, I kind of just like, I was like, "Hey," and then I treated it like on a human level, and then later he apologized, but like I think a lot of gym owners, like, they take themselves so serious, like they would have like, "Okay, yeah, let's go roll," and then like I try to like choke him out or something, like, and it's just like, is that necessary? Or kick him out or something like that. And things happen, and I think gym owners have to realize that they are not above anybody else. They just have more knowledge on the sport than other people, and that if people are paying a high amount of money to them, a lot of times those people are successful in their respective fields. And people feel when you're arrogant and when you think you know better than them, and then there's other issues that arise, right? There's been a lot of issues in our sport recently with like sexual misconduct, and this kind of stems from that. It boils down to power. When somebody feels like they have more power over somebody, they take advantage of them. And it's not only sexual, it's also in other aspects as well. Like I've seen coaches take, advantage of students, for favors, for gifts, to do things for them. And, they blurred the lines. And they're also at the same time, I guess, we're not professional. Um, so I think that's the main thing. Like not take themselves too seriously, understand that they're giving a service and that people are paying for the service, and not to be arrogant or powerful over others.
What do you think people, or some people at least, plateau for years without getting better in jiu-jitsu specifically?
I think because jiu-jitsu is very hard. It's very, very hard, and you have to go to that extra mile to get better at it. And like the students that like watch videos, the students that go to seminars, the students that like really try, I think, they end up excelling. Um, but others, I think, they do the bare minimum and it shows.
So you have to invest?
You have to invest. You have to, yeah, you have to invest. And, now we have so many resources. And, but I also think jiu-jitsu is very, very hard. And also like to plateau means like you have a certain level. And sometimes I think people, they find a few moves that work for them, and then they're afraid to lose maybe in training. So they stop trying other moves. And if you don't try other moves, then how are you going to expand your game? And, they get better at, the things that they do, or maybe not. And then that's how I guess they plateau.
Makes sense. What trends do you think will disappear in the next few years? Jiu-jitsu related. I mean, what is the trend now? What do we see trending on social media with jiu-jitsu?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, I mean, we have, we've had a lot of innovation, I would say like maybe 10 years ago. And now I would say that everybody is very, very well-rounded, but we see less specialists today. Because like, when you had like the Mendes brothers, they were, specialists in taking the back and leg drags and things like that, right? Then you had Eddie Cummings, who revolutionized all of jiu-jitsu with leg locks. Then you had, Marcelo, who was a specialist in guillotines and rear naked chokes. So you had these specialists, right? But then sometimes these specialists would lose. So then they realized that they have to expand their game. And people, when they're watching them, they're like, yeah, if this person avoids Eddie Cummings' leg locks, he can beat Eddie Cummings. So Eddie Cummings needs to expand his game, and then means that I have to expand my game. And now I feel like a lot of the up-and-comers are like very well-rounded, which is great, but none of them are specializing in anything. Like, not none of them, but a lot of them. And I think we're going to go back to specializations. And we're kind of seeing that. Like there's a young kid, Diego Ortiz, that trains under Jason Rao in Vanguard. He's training only for a few years. He went to ADCC trials in Brazil, and he leg locked everyone except the finals.
Insane.
And he's I think purple belt. He just got his purple, and he leg locked black belts. So I think being a specialist, I think, is gonna have a resurgence.
That's amazing. No, I mean, we're talking about no-gi, right? Mostly. Well, Marcelo.
It's yeah, mostly no-gi, but it could be both.
Eddie. I trained with Eddie like a year ago. No matter where we started from, he was getting to the same position all the time.
Eddie Cummings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did you train with him?
What here?
Where?
At Henzo.
Oh, he's at Henzo still? Yeah.
I came by to take a photo of somebody, and
because there's rumors, and where he is, but
just so happened.
Yeah, I think he single-handedly like revolutionized jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I don't see too much of him on social media, to be honest.
Yeah, he just kind of like disappeared.
Yeah. In your opinion, running successful academy more about jiu-jitsu or business aspect?
It has to be business. At the end of the day, it's business. Because you can have the best jiu-jitsu, but like, what's part of a business? Part of a business is customer service. Part of a business is cleanliness. Like, if you have a an amazing barbershop, but it's not clean, people are not going to go. If their person's trying to make an appointment and nobody's calling them back, they're not going to go. So I think, it starts with business, and then of course you have to have good jiu-jitsu. But I think that's part of the question you gave earlier to me, that people think that their amazing jiu-jitsu is enough for them to do anything that they want to, and to treat students and customers any way they want to. And I think that's incorrect.
Beautiful. Since your brand is performance and lifestyle, and by brand I'm talking about Masterskaya and everything behind it, along with the Bridge Defied, if you have to build a perfect human using jiu-jitsu, what qualities would they have?
Intelligence, creativity. Now those are easy. You gave me that one earlier. But being athletic is, of course, very important. But a quality that I like in my friends that that they share is not taking themselves too seriously. Like, that's a quality that all of my friends share in common. They can laugh at themselves, right? And I think that's an important quality to be a fighter as well, right? To get better, you have to be okay with failing and maybe looking stupid while you fail, and trying something that is definitely not going to work and making sure it doesn't work, or maybe being surprised and finding out that there's a new way to do something. And that's how any discovery would be. Like, who would think a berimbolo was gonna be so effective, like spinning upside down and going like that. And this is in the era where jiu-jitsu was like machismo, was like tough. It's like
But that was a breakthrough, right?
that
Like
was
you pass it, and all of a sudden the guy inverts, turns underneath you.
yeah,
Your butt and your legs are in the air, and now he's on your back choking you out.
yeah.
And you were just passing.
But somebody, I mean, they looked foolish trying that the first time, right? Like, think about it, right? Like, to like spin and put your butt into somebody's face.
Yeah.
That's like you have to be okay with that. So I would say that these qualities would also transcend into an athlete.
Do you think somebody could become a high level athlete, not being very athletic, at least in the beginning?
No, before I didn't think so. But you need athleticism, for our sport to be a competitive athlete.
Yeah.
And like jiu-jitsu, it's in the infancy stages. Like, only today, like 15 years ago, like, we had Cobrinhas, where he started jiu-jitsu like in his mid-20s, and then he became a world champion in his mid-30s. But I don't think that's going to be possible, soon. Now most of the up and coming like world champions, they started as kids to become an adult world champion. And people say that athleticism doesn't matter in jiu-jitsu, but it does. At least some degree of it. Unless jiu-jitsu is one of the few sports where, right, you can become this like specialized and then beat everybody with just like one or two moves. Like, I like this guy named Abe that in Texas, he does the A block. Do you know this guy?
No.
He does reverse close guard on everybody. And then he just does this A block where it's a toe hold, but he does like a Muay Thai clinch on the foot. And he taps everybody with this thing, and he just finds it from everywhere. And he has thick legs, and he's able to tap people. So if you can find something like that you can just like surprise a lot of people with, and the Jiro was one of those moves as well, then you can be pretty high level.
Beautiful. No, you gotta have that go-to move, that's gonna surprise everybody, at least in the beginning, until people are gonna like you mentioned, if somebody defends Eddie Cummings, attack on the legs, then Eddie Cummings could be susceptible to this or that. But yeah, I trained with this kid in Long Island. Help me out with the name. His father owns the school, 10th Planet.
Shigoli, Pat Shigoli.
Yeah. So Pat's son, he was making a lot of waves.
Very good leg locks.
Yeah. 16 or 17 years old.
Yeah, very talented kid.
Yeah. So Alex, recently I read this article, and I kind of highlighted the phrase from there that's very relatable to everyday life. It doesn't matter if we in jiu-jitsu or not, but I'm gonna read to you what it said. Your growth bothers people not because it's wrong, but because it breaks the system in which you were convenient, understandable, and controllable. What do you think of that? So basically, we broke through the plateau of being convenient, controllable, understandable, and now we're this different person, right? And sometimes it's almost like our friends are not on the same page with us, because in life, I'm sorry I'm translating for you, but you have your own vision of this. The way I see it is that you getting smarter, you getting older, you have different perspective on business growth and other aspects of life, and somebody else could have got stuck in a comfortable environment times, and now you're no longer convenient as a friend to them.
Yeah, so I have many thoughts on that. It's kind of like, if right now, a police officer comes over here, and he wants to arrest you, and deep down you're gonna be like, I hope he gets Alex and Ernest too. If I'm gonna go to jail, let's all go to jail. Humans, we are a tribal species, and like if you want to go down, you want to go down together, and if you want to go up, you want to go up together. But unfortunately, some people don't have the vision to see that doing something like jiu-jitsu is going to be life-changing, which it is. And people just don't understand it. Like if right now, let's say playing mahjong, the Chinese game,
Mm-hmm.
let's say it's going to make you smarter, hypothetically. But I have no, I can't understand that. And then you come to me and you're like, hey, let's play this game. It's going to make you smarter. And I think you're just messing with me. I'm not going to want to do that. And then you play it and then you actually become smarter. And then I'm like, I have regrets that I didn't listen to you and didn't join you. I think that's kind of like jujitsu. Because a lot of people, they look at jujitsu, they're like, it's like two grown men or a man and a woman rolling around sweating on each other on the floor. What is that? What does this have to do with anything? But then when you master jujitsu or on your way to mastery of jujitsu, you see how it's applicable to anything in your life. And you can see it as a vehicle of self-growth, as many other things. But I think jujitsu especially, because like in nothing else is there like tapping and like there's a submission. Like this is something very rare. And it's very rare to submit and then be able to come back and have another life. Like this is one of the only places this exists. And jiu-jitsu also, it has the physical element of fighting, which is very, very animalistic. And we're humans, we are like an animalistic culture. So I think for a lot of people, it's like they almost don't want to admit of how powerful jiu-jitsu can be.
Yeah. Well, I really hope some of those people who think that way, including I have colleagues and even people that I know for years that might not. I don't want to say they don't take it seriously, because they only see jujitsu through what we post, right? Oh, Alex competed, he won. Oh, Alex was there. Great for him to be there, but he didn't win. Sometimes we as humans will only see the accolades, win or lose, and there's really nothing in between. But as you mentioned, for 10 years you were going to world championship, and only once you placed on the podium. And only certain people that are kind of in the cell, three of us that you mentioned, right? When you're in the same, when you're doing the same thing, it's more relatable to you. You're more, your vision is much wider to see things clearly. I'm learning as a human being to almost like see the prophecy that was brought to us, to see things more clearly, to have that vision early on. And I'm learning basically how to be a better man and more understanding. And I think what I'm gonna say now is so contradicting to how I felt before. Um, but I'm trying not to be very convenient anymore
To people
to
or
people. Yeah.
Mhm. What made the change?
There's some personal changes in my life that I went through. They're all good changes, you know, but um, being a likable person, somebody that people like and, you know, could, you know, relate to simply because that person is just always nice to them, but they never sit down and really speak to the person about what's going on. What, you know, a lot of those things are phone calls, you know, like Mike, good morning, and then it's like brrr, nonstop for 10 minutes. People's feeling their guts. To me, I'm sure there's a lot of people like that, and you becoming basically a sponge for everybody's else problems, their vision in life, their heartache, and you know, it's tons of things, you know. And I'll be honest with you, I can speak so freely because 99.9% those people are not going to hear this now. Maybe one or two will. But in reality, I'm looking at the camera. They're not going to even know I'm speaking about them.
So you should tag them. Yeah.
Because people are unrealistic with their expectations. They're unrealistic of what's important for me as a human being, you know. I don't know. So this is my takeaway from uh this up everything up until this moment. It's when I call Alex, yeah, sometimes we can go straight to talking shit and like, hey, let's get down to business. But sometimes it's important to ask, are you available? Do you have a minute to talk? And me not talking for 10 minutes and have a diarrhea of my mouth about my heartache, you know, about my issues in life, because God knows what you're going through. So we need to, I feel like as an adult, we need to tell people that, you know, there's some expectancies that we expect something, not only in return, but there's got to be some separation of privacy, personal time, personal space, you know. And honestly, if these are friends or people at least that they say they care for us, they need to listen to our stories sometimes too. You know, you can't be the sponge all the time and the wisdom person to give people 2 cents about what to do. But sorry, I got off topic.
My first coach, Gene Dunn, like he was very influential in my life, and I remember he made a speech one time where he said that in life you can't be a give me, and there's these people that they're just like give me, give me, give me, give me, and it's like whenever they look at a person, they look at you, and you know they make a checklist. Okay, Mike, you know he works in the medical field. Mike has a podcast. He has people of jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. They do a checklist, and then they're like, okay, what can I take out of this guy?
Yeah.
And then they just try to like, blah, 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 take on to the next person, on to the next person. And then there's no reciprocity. They never give anything in return. And it's an arrogance, right? That all these people that are in their life, they can take from. And he would always talk about this, like, you don't want to be this kind of person, you know? And in the jiu-jitsu sense, honestly, it's just the way it has to be, though. It's kind of a competitor. Like, you have to just like try to smash everybody in your way. And somebody asks you, hey, how do I defend against that armbar? If you're a competitor, you're like, get away from me. I got to tap the next guy.
Yeah.
You know, but that's going to be the person, like you said earlier, is like, you know, not a lot of people are going to want to train with.
Yeah.
And that's why competitors, if you go on an Instagram page on almost every competitor, if you scroll down, they change teams every year or every 2 years or every 3 years, because it's like, you know, they run out of training partners and they have conflicts and this and that and the other, and then they have to leave to a new spot, you know, and it's like, you know, take now from that place and from that place. And then like I find it kind of funny that a lot of competitors, they'll make a post, 13 paragraphs long about how this coach changed their life, and then 6 months later they're on a new team making the same post about a new coach. So it's like, and it sounds like in your life you're encountering these people that are doing this to you.
Alex, what do you think of these handsome faces that you see around you? You recognize anybody?
Some I likes. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I recognize a lot. A lot of them. Mike Mulero, he was gracious enough when I was a purple belt. He allowed me to do my very first seminar in his gym. He had a student, Freddie Martinez, who's now in San Diego. He organized it. So, I did a
Was
seminar.
that in Long Island?
No, this was in Upper East Side.
Upper East Side.
Upper East Side,
Okay.
yeah, like 92nd, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is super cool. Like I had the yoga to the people inspiration for, the donation based gym. So, when I saw this, you had the, Humans of New York inspiration for this. So I think it's super cool. And
Yeah.
I like the stories that you write about people. And, a lot of them, like when I read them, a lot of them I'm surprised about. Like, some people say very personal things.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so there's more to the armbar than the choke and the smile.
I had a few people in 10 years that asked me to remove the post. I'm gonna make it public and say that I'm all like almost very saddened to see that text from a person once in a while, as much as I understand what could be the reason behind it, with silliness and social media, and sometimes things happen. But I feel like, if anything, and I'm not being selfish because this is my page and this is my artwork, and I invest into writing about people and connecting, but to me it's almost like this is so untouchable, right? We can remove other pictures, other posts. I just feel like this is like when people invest into writing about them, especially like you're saying, the vulnerable part. It's like you all almost like want to leave it there. You don't want to take it away. And it's almost like sometimes, very rarely, I'll have a message. I'm a brown belt now. When you posted a picture, I was a blue belt. That's amazing. That was 10 years ago. You look younger. You had less gray hair. You know so much more now. Leave it as is. That's like, it's a timestamp of your life from that moment that we should never forget. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy you um part of this journey with me, as we all are, and to create something organic and continue doing it. I think consistency is one of the biggest words that attribute to growth in general in our life, whether it's business aspect of any job, whether it's jujitsu, especially when it comes to athleticism, right? It's not just you being athletic and learning a move once or twice. It's repetitiveness. It's testing your skills, being in the vulnerable situation, as you mentioned, applying jujitsu to everyday life. So all of those are great and important attributes.
I agree. Yeah.
Love it. Some blitz questions for you, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
I can answer this one for you. Gi or no gi?
Now I like no gi.
Yeah.
But when I came up when I was training with Shalin, it was 6 days a week of gi, 1 day of no gi. And then when I opened up my own gym, I was lucky that Shalin was doing laundry for me. He had a laundry service. So,
Really?
Yeah, he had a laundry service. So I was like, And then when I opened up my own gym, and I was like, wait a second, I got to do like all this laundry. So that was part of the reason that we did a lot of no gi. And then I started liking it more. And then when I first opened, it was 10 years ago. So Eddie Cummings, one of the EBIs that I fought, and Eddie Cummings was in my division. So I had to learn leg locks, and I had to there was a lot of new evolution in no gi at that time. So that's what made me kind of drawn more to no gi.
Alex, I'm gonna break my own rule as far as going down the line with this blitz question.
Yeah.
G roll. Totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I was the student that when Shalin would show a move, I'm trying to find my own move, and then Shalin was like, okay, we're gonna do positional, and I'm like, but what if this happens? That was always me, and I always, I never wanted to, even in my life in general, I never wanted to be like everyone else in whatever way, rebellious way or just stubborn way, whatever. So I would always try to make things up, and my first move that I fell in love with was the Kimura. And the reason that I still love it, the reason is You know, I was like a chubby 16, 17-year-old. And then I see Gene Dunn, and Gene Dunn is a towering guy. You know,
Yeah.
he's like 6'2", 6'3", like, you know, very, 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 very soft spoken, by the way, but very intimidating looking. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, oh my God, this is my new coach. Like, this is crazy, you know, like this is unbelievable. And then I'm always smarter than everybody else, me. So I go online, I'm like, I'm gonna find out who his coach is. So I look and I'm like, this is his coach? And I find Henzo. And Henzo's a little bit chubby, a little bit. So I'm like, this is my coach's coach? All right, well, how good can he be? I started looking up his fights, and actually I found the Sakuraba fight.
Mm-hmm.
Sakuraba against Henzo.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was a white belt, and I'm like, my coach's coach got his arm broken with this move. And I was like, I think I should learn this move. And it so happened that Gene Dunn also loved the Kimura. So I learned it from him and I started doing it. And then when I went to Shaolin, I asked Shaolin what his favorite move was. And Shaolin told me it was the Kimura. And Shaolin was known for his arm triangle, but he told me it was the Kimura. So I was like I'm on the right track,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I keep going, only Kimura, 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 Kimura. And all I'm doing is Kimura from half guard. And one day I was doing a Kimura from half guard, and my training partner kind of joked with me, and he was kind of hiding his arm, and he like leaned all the way back. Like, you know, the fat Joe leaned back?
Yeah.
He did that, but like on his knees. And then I'm like, and my ankles were crossed at that moment, and I did a push-up to knock him backwards, and I knocked him over. And we both kind of laughed about it. And I was like, wait a second, I just like got, you know, swept him with this like funny thing.
Yeah. You end up in a weird position.
Yeah. And then I was like, and then I started trying it. And then Shaolin was very encouraging. And he goes, that's cool. I've never seen that before. And then Shaolin tried it, and then Van tried it, and then all my training partners tried it, and then we were all trying it. And then we started like hitting all these moves off of it. And it became like a little system, you know? And then I started competing, and I was just like a one-trick pony. I would pull half guard, and even the fights I lost, I would just hit it multiple times. I had an almost 100% success rate with it. One of the only people that blocked it was your old training partner, Adam Benayoun.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the only people that ever blocked it. Him and maybe like one or two other people, but every fight I got it, and multiple times. And then, yeah, just, you know, kind of became popular. And I also did a donation-based instructional on it that my friend Gus Larea helped me film. And I put that free instructional on YouTube. And that was actually the first like donation-based thing that I kind of experimented.
Why the name G-Log?
G-Roll?
G-Roll, I'm sorry.
I don't publicly say it, but I'll say it. This will be the first time I think I say it publicly on a video, at least. You know, I tell people jokingly, like Brazilian people. I love Brazilian people, but they're very macho, as we all know, and not all of them can laugh at themselves. I think we could agree on that, right? And G stands for gostosinho. Gostosinho translates to little sexy. And Shaolin and like the other coaches, we would always laugh, and they're like, "You can't what? You can't call another man sexy. What are you like, you know?" And then I found it very funny. So I was like, it's going to be the little sexy roll, you know? So that's what the G stands for. Yeah, we just kind of went off with it.
Gostosinho.
He goes to Zinnia, just like sexy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've never seen anybody else do it. Kautera and Samir Chantre, they do something similar, like almost the same, but not like I have a lot of other moves from it. They kind of do like one or two maybe. But yeah, I haven't seen like too many other people do it. And
Actually, I've seen Samir. Me and him trained a while back. He's done very similar move on me, but I don't think I knew it back then, and I didn't see.
yeah, I never saw him do. He was a little bit upset at me at first. He sent me a message a long time ago. He was like, "Hey, I did this first, and you said you did it first." I said, "My bad." You know, I don't know. Like, you know, I'm like, "Who did the first push-up?" You know, I think I joked with him or something like that. I was like, "Who did the first push-up?" Like, and it's like, who knows? You know, and but it doesn't really matter. Who cares? But yeah, I think it's like a cool move, and like I had to stop doing it because it's like all I would do, you know. And I do a lot of workshops with it, and like everybody gets it, you know. And especially if the person doesn't see it coming, you know, they get hit with it. It's like a cheat code.
G-Roll. System or instinct?
I think system. I like system, but I love improv. I think improv is great, and I love flow rolling where there's no systems. But you need like a blend of both. Like such exciting fighters are like Andrew Tackett, right? Like the Tackett brothers, with Solas, everybody loves them. They do have systems, right? Like they have like their like guard passes that they chain, but they're also like, you know, they're so fun to watch because they have so much improv and so much instinct, and they can escape positions that like, you know, like how in the world did that happen? So I think those are like the most fun, you know, they can blend both.
Mm-hmm. Pressure or speed?
Actually, I like pressure more. You know, I have like a theory, I call the Mike Tyson theory, where like Mike Tyson and Fedor, by the way, and many others, like they were successful because they were heavyweights, but they moved like lightweights. So to be like a big guy and to move like a smaller person, like surprises so many people when big guys don't use pressure. But what's the reverse? What's the inverse? The inverse is little guys pressuring. So what if you're like a little guy, but you're like, you know, a truck, and then you can pressure a big guy and the big guy doesn't expect that. You know, so I think that's a lot of fun because when a big guy rolls with a small guy, he's expecting speed.
Mm-hmm.
He's not expecting the pressure. So for me, being a small person, I like to surprise bigger people with pressure.
Control or submission?
Well, they're interrelated, right? You know, submission is the ultimate form of control because submission means there's no other ways to get out, which means you have the ultimate control over the person. So, um, I guess, you know, it's combined. But if I had to choose one, I would choose submission.
Most useless technique being taught today? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Most useless technique?
Being taught today.
I wouldn't say it's useless, but look, it went out of trend, right? And it drove me crazy. I had like a guy that I know, you know, kind of like a heavy set brown belt. Like, you know, maybe he'll be upset at me if he sees this, and I'm just saying, but he's maybe like 5'8", 5'9", and you know, maybe like 200. You know, he's not that, so he's like, you know, and he messaged me, goes, Alex, because I found this move on YouTube, and what do you think about it? He sends me the buggy choke, and this is before it became famous. I look at it for 30 seconds. I write back. I'm like, never message me again. This is like the dumbest thing I ever saw in my life. Like don't message me. And then, you know, we have a back and forth, and, you know, it was on friendly terms, of course, and I'm over exaggerating. But, you know, then 6 months later, I had to write him an apology letter. I was like, by the way, my bad.
But there was a trend with that, right? With the buggy choke.
It was a trend that,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, I saw some of the best people in the world
Yeah.
get put to sleep with it. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I wrote back to him like, my bad. It actually works, but it's still not for you. You know, I was like, you got to do the hip escape because your body's saying. But I feel like for a moment in time, people were like doing buggy from everywhere.
Yeah.
But then, you know, people learn how to defend it, so you see it way less now. But one thing that I don't really like is I don't like I love the Damian Maya approach, like where you can win a fight like very gracefully.
Mhm.
And Damian Maya even said in one of his interviews, he's like, I like to win a fight, and then my opponent the next day goes to play soccer with his kids. And I like that mindset, you know. And I really dislike like smother chokes. I dislike like the hand in the mouth. You know, I dislike anything that's like rough for no reason and that does not involve technicality. If you're like a bigger guy and you have a hairy chest and you just put it into my face, I know there's a lot of technique with the smother choke. People have taught me like, you know, that like it. But to me, it's still, you know, I'm not a fan.
I hear you. One thing that white belts focus on too much.
Submissions, you know, and then sometimes they get them, right? Like they get a guillotine or a triangle, and now, you know, they just go for it all the time, and they, you know, lose it, and then now they're trying to catch up,
Mhm.
you know. But I think if they focus more on the position, the control, like you said earlier, I think, you know, it'd be a smarter approach.
One thing that black belts still get wrong.
Um, I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. Favorite submission of all time.
My favorite. One of my first coaches was Brian Glick. So it was Gene Zen and Brian Glick. They were together at the time, and I remember eavesdropping on Brian Glick talking to another student, and the student said to Brian, like, Brian, what submissions do you like? And then Brian said, I love all my children. And when I heard that, I said, man, I wish I said that first, but I didn't, you know. So it's funny because like I love all of them, you know, like I go through trends and I try to teach all submissions. I have students that, you know, Vlad and Maria, they tease me. They're like, Alex, they're like, the only submission that you haven't taught us in 10 years is a knee bar, which is true. For some reason, I don't do knee bars. But every other submission I love. If I had to choose one, maybe a fusion, like a Kimura from inside the triangle, something like that. like a triangle and then a kimura fin
Interesting.
from
Yeah,
there, you know, maybe that.
100%.
But I like everything, man. I like back triangles. I like front. I love triangles. I love omoplatas. We're doing omoplatas this week in the gym, so I'm like having this, you know, this new love of omoplatas, and I forgot how much fun it is. I love leg locks. I like everything.
Cool.
Love all my children.
One training partner attributes you respect the most.
I think patience, like in general or a specific
Yeah,
person.
in general. No, it doesn't have to be a specific person. Just in general.
I think patience. I think that's like the most underused, right? Like, I think what separates like a higher level and a lower level guy, like a higher level guy is gonna cook the person longer, and they're gonna wear the person out. They're gonna wait for the right time to attack, right? They're not just going. They wait enough that the other person puts themselves in trouble, and the other person gives an opening. So I think patience is like, you know, the most important attribute for high level people, I would say.
One word to describe your jiu-jitsu.
My jiu-jitsu,
Could be a few words. I always say that. I always write when I put this together one word, but then I realize it's so difficult just to come up with one word to describe anything.
yeah, I guess I love being creative, I would say. And it's funny because like when I watch videos of myself and like the jiu-jitsu that I teach and the jiu-jitsu that I do is two different jiu-jitsus. Like I do a lot of improv and I follow the concepts that I teach, but I find my own spin on it and I try to sometimes break the concepts. So I would say like I try to have like a creative jiu-jitsu. I'm not very fast, even though I'm smaller, I'm not very fast. Um I try to like control people. I try to bait people a lot. I have like a counter. I like to counter fight. So like I love if somebody's going for an underhook. Like for example, my favorite people to fight and roll against are wrestlers actually. Like I like when people come at me so I can like counter them. Where a lot of people say they hate rolling with wrestlers. So yeah, maybe those would be.
Okay. I should visit soon.
Huh?
I said I should visit soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. What everyday situation feels like a bad position?
Man, I went to the DMV yesterday. You know, that was, you know, I had to exercise all my years going
Which
in.
location? Brooklyn?
I went to the Atlantic
Downtown?
Avenue.
Oh,
Atlantic
yeah.
Avenue.
They're actually better than the one on
Well,
Fourth
next
State.
week, well, to keep the story short, you know, I have to go. I have to go again next week. And next week, they told me in person at that DMV. They were like, "Yeah, why don't you try another location?" You know, so next week I'm going to the Canal location. So my years of failing at the World Championships, leads me to failing at the DMV and still sleeping at night. You know, so that was my day yesterday.
Music during training, essential or distraction, in your opinion?
Oh, I think it's essential. I remember, you know, like, when I was training, we never trained with music. And then when I started listening to music, it make things like so much better. It just makes the mood better. Like it also depends what kind of music it is. Like I like light rap, like not like heavy rap, like light rap is good. I love techno, like kind of dance, kind of like electronic music, reggae, things like that. I think those are like uplifting and create for a very good environment.
What screams to you, this guy just started jiu-jitsu?
I mean, having their belt, tied very high, underneath their chest, you know. But I don't know. I don't just maybe talking about it all the time and like
I know, we don't discriminate. We'll have all of our
but I stopped
children,
giving
yeah.
out my phone number because I get like 11 p.m. text
Oh my
messages.
God,
It's like
yeah.
I got my first armbar. That's awesome, but it's like 11:02 at p.m.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You gotta draw the
You
line.
got to draw the line.
If jiu-jitsu didn't exist, what do you think you would be doing?
That's a tough. I think about that often. Like I got very lucky too because like you too, right? Like we chose jujitsu. Like if you and I put the same effort that we put into jiu-jitsu, let's say we put it into taekwondo. Like, I don't know, would you have this like people of taekwondo? Like taekwondo, it's not as hot anymore. It's not as thick. So I think, we also entered jiu-jitsu in this like Renaissance era when it was like blowing up,
Yeah.
right? and we were able to reap the rewards of that. Imagine you know you were one of the first people to buy a loft in Soho before it became popular, right? It's like that's kind of what happened with us in jiu-jitsu. So I think about that often, and I do think I worked very hard in jiu-jitsu, but I'm like, would I be able to open up my own business and be successful, things like that. But I have a lot of respect for medicine and for doctors and for the medical industry. I would love to maybe contribute in some kind of way in that field. Recently I fell in love with architecture and with real estate. I think like civil engineering is so cool. Like to me, the gym is very close to Manhattan and Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Like every time I pass it, I'm looking at these bridges. I'm like, I can't. Like, how did this get built? So maybe something to do with that. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Finish the sentence. Everybody wants to be a black belt, but nobody wants to
Suffer. And you don't want to suffer. Like I have a coach, and he laughs to me. He's like, man, some of the students, they're complaining like, you're going too hard. Why are you put your shoulder in my ear? And he's like, that's just how it goes, right? And like jiu-jitsu is rough. You may get cauliflower ear, you may lose a tooth, you may get ACL surgery, and you got to come back, right? To
If you have to define your philosophy in a few words, a few sentences, what would it be?
One quote that I read a while ago from a teaching perspective that I try to live by is, a good teacher does not use the words always and never. So I think that's a big aspect. I think it's so interesting that like textbooks change, right? There's new editions, things that are studied for hundreds of years get changed. Science changes, like new discoveries get formed. So I think we have to be fluid in our jiu-jitsu. Like, I had this conversation with Van recently where, Van, when he I don't know, for me, I love Van with all my heart. And, and I hear him saying, old school. And I'm like, dude, stop saying old school. Either it works or it doesn't work. There's no old school. There's no new school, like that's it. And we have these like funny like discussions about this. So I think like once something stops working, you got to stop doing it. So I think fluidity and being open-minded is key. And there's like old school positions that are working so well these days. All right. And it's never like some positions, I call it like blue jeans. Like it's never going to go out of fashion.
Amen to that. Alex, I think that was a perfect answer to a somewhat creative question. I try to keep it, entertaining and a little bit difficult at times, but you're a very interesting character in sense of just like me, you doing this and that, and there's no stopping in you. You have all of this potential. I feel like some of things they still like a gem. It's still hiding there. You just need to polish it a little bit more. And I sincerely wish you all the best. And I appreciate you thinking of me for your Bridge the Fight. And anytime you have some kind of rollout entertaining event or something, that you always message me and you're always welcoming. And I truly appreciate that. And I appreciate our friendship and the connection that we made throughout all these years from one another. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for supporting me all
Of
this
course.
time.
Thank you, Alex.
Appreciate
all the
you,
best.
bro.